So the next story in this collection is called A Mother, and the story is about a mother named Mrs. Kearney, and she was formerly Miss Devlin before she got married, and she's doing her absolute best to get her daughter Kathleen into like the musical world, like to get her musical success. Mrs. Kearney tries to work with a guy named Mr. Holohan to get Kathleen to perform music in front of an audience, like on stage. They work out a contract, and they work out a contract that says Kathleen will play as an accompanist, like someone who's like a supplementary musician to someone else playing the main tune. And she will do this for 4 grand concerts, and in return receive 8 guineas. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but that's almost 14 Canadian dollars in our time. The thing is, Mr. Holohan comes off as someone who isn't that organized, formal, or like professional. He's like that client who hires like a software developer to make a website and like says all these requirements, like I want this, I want that, but he doesn't like care to like get it on paper. Like it's just like a verbal agreement kind of thing. He's like that, you know. And in contrast, Mrs. Kearney is like a professional, she holds herself professionally, and she wants to sign a contract and do this like formally, like proper. Like she's like a competent project manager. She forgot nothing, and thanks to her, everything that was to be done was done. And basically, as the story goes, the contract doesn't get fulfilled, and there were issues with setting up all 4 concerts, and Mrs. Kearney tries to get her full payment for her daughter. The other party of the contract, though, is a bit fuzzy and unreliable. Mrs. Kearney brings her husband into things, which has an impact and improves things for her because her husband is a male, and Mrs. Kearney would be taken more seriously if she had like a male to support her. She appreciated his abstract value as a male. She was glad that he had suggested coming with her. In the end, I don't think Mrs. Kearney fully gets her end of the contract, and Mr. Holohan and his colleague Mr. Fitzpatrick think that they're in the right for some reason, like as they're fighting back. Also, the story contains delusional artists like Madame Glynn. First part of the concert was very successful, except for Madame Glynn's item. The poor lady sang Killarney as a bodiless, gasping voice, which all the old-fashioned mannerisms of intonation and pronunciation, which she believed lent elegance to her singing. She looked as if she had been resurrected from an old stage wardrobe, and the cheaper parts of the hall made fun of her high wailing notes. I think the story also highlights how it's not necessarily skill that gets you musical recognition, but like one's position in society, or like how you handle yourself in the business side, how well you get along with the people you're working with. But like that sucks for Kathleen and Mrs. Kearney. Like she's trying so hard, and this is so serious to her, and these guys are kind of like just laid back about it.